Hello, everyone. Let's just start right off and talk about where I am at secondhand goods right now, which is 1964. I just finished up 1963 today. I did Louie Louie, which is the last song in 1963. And those of you who know your pop music history, 1964 is kind of a dividing line. You have 1963, which is kind of the end of that early 60s malaise I was talking about before. And then in 1964, something happens. I'm not going to mention it here, but canny people who know their pop music history will already know what happens. And it's kind of like they took a blowtorch to the early 60s and just blew away the ashes. So we'll be seeing that, and it's going to be very exciting. That's what's waiting for me. Anything with confirmed bachelors, I don't know. But what I wanted to talk about was, I think these vlog videos are going to be, remembrances of stuff that I remember. And one thing I wanted to talk about this time was drive-ins. Not drive-in food places, but, when I was very young, we actually did have an A&W that still had the drive-up service. They didn't have the car hops that roller skated to your car with the, like in freaking American Graffiti or anything like that. But no, you did drive up to the little stall, press the button, and talk over the intercom to someone inside the restaurant, and then they would have a car hop walk out to your car with a tray full of the food that you ordered and stick it on the little thing with the tabs that will hold it in the window. If you've ever seen the opening credits, the closing credits rather, to the Flintstones, you'll know about the giant side of Bronto ribs that makes the car tip over. It's kind of like that, except, we never ordered so much food it made the car tip over. That's just silly. But no! Yeah, that was at the corner of the San Pablo Dam Road and El Portal Drive. It's not, of course, not there anymore. That whole place has been razed, and it looks completely different now. But drive-in movie theaters is what I wanted to talk about before I got a little sidetracked by talking about the A&W. But yes, this is a thing that I remember from when I was a kid. Back in my day, old Rivers and I were looking for the Dutchman's gold. No. I'm sorry. No more bad Walter Brennan impressions, I promise. This video. Anyway. But yes, when I was a kid, most of my early movie-going experiences was in drive-ins. The first actual, walk-in movie that I went to was when I was 4 years old. It was the Park Cinema in El Sobrante, which is, the building's still there, but it's been a church for a very long time. But I remember the movie that we went to see. It was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And it's not really a movie made for a 4-year-old kid. And about 10 minutes in, I fell asleep. And I don't remember even being there. I don't even remember what happened after that. They probably just, picked me up and took me out of the theater after it was done. Because I clearly slept through the whole thing. But no, the drive-ins that I remember when I was a kid, it's, first off, there's the Solano 1 and 2 in Concord, which, last I checked, is still there. There was the Rancho in San Pablo, which the main thing I remember is it was a little more, I think, déclassé, I will say, than the other drive-ins they had. Like drive-in movies are classy, but no, they actually had a marquee that said El Portal Shopping Center, but they would, I think later on it said El Portal Shopping Center, but at the time they used it for the Rancho drive-in, and it's just right as you drove down Tank Farm Hill, which is the hill that descends down into San Pablo. There were these big marquees showing what was playing at the Rancho drive-in. I believe it's a elementary school now. But the movies that I remember being on that marquee, first of all, was Beyond the Door, which is this really cheesy Exorcist ripoff starring Juliette Mills, and the thing I mainly remember that was just the trailer for it scared the crap out of me. And the other one I remember them showing was Exit the Dragon, Enter the Tiger, which you might remember Brad Jones reviewing. It's a very, very crass Bruce Lee exploitation movie. Aren't they all? But the only movie I ever remember seeing there was, I think it was The Pink Panther Strikes Again. It was whichever one ends with Dreyfus going crazy and becoming a supervillain, and he has the laser thing out in his hideout in, I guess, the French countryside somewhere. But it was that one. And we'd gone with some family friends in their big boat of a car. And we had the two couples, like my parents and their friends, and me and my sister and their 3 daughters. So I remember they didn't want to pay for all of us. So me and Cindy, their kid, their youngest, as the 2 youngest kids, had to suffer the indignity of being stuck behind the front seat with blankets over our heads. As they snuck us. They didn't sneak us in the trunk, thank God. But, yeah. But the one drive-in that I have the most memories of is the Hilltop Drive-In. It was up there on Hilltop Drive. You would drive up, and there would be this water tank, and then you would drive in, and it would go around that way. It's kind of like a Days Inn now. A Days Inn is located on the property now, and there's actually like this pillar, this sign that shows Hilltop Mall and the different shops that are there, and that is actually apparently where the projection booth used to be. So yeah, this is where we went to see a whole lot of movies when I was a kid. It was they would have one screen which would have the Disney double feature, and I remember it was a big event whenever we went, because they get my sister and me in our PJs, and then we'd get out. My parents would get out our sleeping bags and zip them together, and they would flip down the back seat of our Plymouth Gold Duster, and they would stick the sleeping bags in there, and my sister and me would be there in the back seat in the sleeping bags, in our pajamas, eating popcorn and watching whatever the first feature of the evening was, and usually we'd be asleep by the second one. And the second feature I vividly remember was Never a Dull Moment, starring Dick Van Dyke, because that was the one movie that had all 4 of us, all 4 family members falling asleep, and my mother pronounced it always a dull moment. But, yeah, I don't have a strong memory of the actual film, but I remember that. Why am I choosing now to pop pimples? Anyway, but that was also the movie theater where I saw my first R-rated movie. It was The End, starring Burt Reynolds and his friend, the Dom DeLuise. My dad wanted to see it for some reason, and I remember watching this movie, and I was thinking, why would anyone find this funny? This is really macabre. But yeah, I kind of want to go back and watch it now, because it's actually gotten some pretty good reviews, and you know, a 6-7-year-old kid is not going to appreciate that movie. But yeah, I saw a whole bunch of movies there, and vividly remembering bits of the rolling stock reel. Now, if you don't know what rolling stock is, it's what they call that's the technical term for the intermission reel. And the weird thing about their intermission reel, is they would show like the intermission slide, and there would be like, you know, generic 1950s happy music over it, as you'd hear a voice go, and I was thinking, at the time it didn't I didn't think anything about it because it's just like, oh, it's just like generic yummy noises. They want you to go to the snack bar and get something to eat. But, you know, I would remember this later on when I was an adult, and I was thinking, you know what? That's really weird. That's like something that would happen in a dream. I think I must be relying on unreliable child memories, but fast forward to the era of YouTube, and I was just, because I'm always curious about this, I go through and look at all these old, you know, intermission clips, and then I get to one called The Goodies Machine, and they're all really poorly animated, really crudely animated. These ones kind of look like it was done by Burt Ward. I can't think of the guy's name, but the animator who's responsible for Rocky and Bullwinkle. Anyway, I look at this video, and it's like the crudely drawn scientist with big glasses and German accent, and he has the Goodies Machine, which shoots out hot dogs and coffee and soft drinks and all this other stuff. And at the end, he pulls down the intermission slide and goes, it's just like, oh my god! There it is! So now, it suddenly dawns on me that they had probably had this film since way back in the 60s, and it had broken long ago, and they just wound up using it as the beginning of their intermission reel through creative editing. But that was not the, pardon me, that was not the only thing I remembered. There's also, they had a lot of those ones where it was just like a slideshow, because they would have local businesses advertising, and they would have like the slideshow with a voiceover, because apparently, you know, not everyone can afford to have like a 16mm or even 8mm camera into their place of business, so they just do a slideshow. And I remember the one for Mark Morris Tires, because for some reason they had they had the voiceover guy who sounded like Kermit the Frog. It's like, Mark Morris Tires, and it's just like, I can't get the sound of his voice out of my head for some reason, and they would always advertise there. And there was another one for the Pizza Den, which was actually right across from the movie theater and a little bit down. It was off of Moyers Road. There was like this little strip mall, and the Pizza Den was in there. I think we only got pizza there one time. I can't even remember what it tasted like, or it was any good or not. But we got pizza there one time, and that's not a mall anymore. That's also a church. It's just like, you'd think that we'd have nothing but crazy religious people in our area considering this, but yeah, I remember the ad for it was, it was probably a stock ad that they just put their things onto. That's what my dad hypothesized. But I remember it was like this stereotypical Italian chef, and he winds up wearing the pizza. And I seem to remember, you know, crazy circus music going along with it. But I'm again wondering if I'm relying on proper, you know, childhood memories. But, you know, after the Goodies Machine thing, I'm thinking, you know what? I probably was remembering correctly, because the other thing I remember was they had the intermission clock where it's like, just 5 minutes to go, and like a lot of them, it's really crudely animated and probably made in the 60s sometime. But this, I don't think I've ever seen. I don't think it's surfaced on YouTube, the one that we had, because it was circus themed, and I seem to remember they had like a human cannonball and a strongman guy, and they both had like really scary eyes, and I was just like so scared that I wouldn't look at the intermission reel when it came on. And other thing I remember, and this is the big one, because they didn't just show this at the Hilltop, they showed this at every drive-in in the Bay Area that I'd ever been to. But they had this ad for the Winchester Mystery House. And if you don't know what the Winchester Mystery House is, it's the Sarah Winchester Mansion down in San Jose. It's one of the few tourist things they have in San Jose. Since they tore down Frontier Village, all they have is the Rosicrucian Museum and the Winchester Mystery House. It's just like, for years it's just been this tourist trap. It's like, come stop in San Jose. We're more than just a big sprawling suburb, a bit of the San Fernando Valley that somehow got lodged on the southern end of the San Francisco Bay. No, but anyway, this was like a really super campy ad. They used all these optical printing effects as they just like zoom through the mansion and have, you know, people doing construction, and they would have like this ghostly female voice going, "Keep building!" And I am surprised that that has not surfaced somewhere, because I remember that very clearly. I'd see it at every Bay Area drive-in, and it's just nowhere to be found. So that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else. I do have something to taste. It's AGV for a Healthy Tomorrow barley drink. I don't know if I've actually tasted this before, but, you know, see, they've got the little thumbs up on the lid there, or thumbs down if you're pessimistic. I don't know if I've tried this before. I think I probably have tried it before. I just don't know if I've tried it before on camera. But I'm going to try it right now, just because I haven't given you a tasting in a long time. Water, isomalto, oligosaccharide. I don't think I have tasted this on camera, because I would have remembered saying that. Barley, sugar, cassia seed, artificial flavor, sodium erythrorate, and sodium bicarbonate. Shelf life 12 months. Expiry date, see neck of the bottle. You know, I'm sure I've talked about having the barley milk tea that Kwang Chuan makes. And it tastes like chocolate milk. I don't know why, but it tastes chocolatey. And I think it's because they have all those emulsifiers and stabilizers in it. So it just kind of gives it that kind of, you know, yoo-hoo taste. But anyway, this smells like chocolate. What the hell? Anyway, I'm not expecting it to taste like chocolate because it hasn't got the cream in it, but here goes. You know, it actually does kind of taste like chocolate tea. It's kind of hard to describe because it's watery. It's kind of like it has the taste, not taste, but it has the consistency of tea, but it has like a chocolatey taste to it. It's kind of, I guess you can kind of taste a little grainy flavor, but it's reminding me of chocolate for whatever reason. It's not rich like most of the chocolate drinks that you would have, but it just has this kind of flavor that's similar to chocolate. It's very interesting. Yeah, if you like the idea of, you know, chocolate tea, you might like this. It's very unusual. Anyway, that's all for now from this very long, very rambling vlog. See you around.